Hi, I'm Jay Martin. I'm shooting this video so you can see a little bit more of my bigger work. I'm calling this video the big picture because literally some of the pictures are bigger than I could put into the photo books that I've made over the past month. You might have seen some of these rough photo books in my other videos called Open Book. There are 3 open book videos. One open book video discusses the photo book Misery to provide a little bit of insight into the homeless in San Francisco, where I'm currently recording. The second photo book is called How Do I Want to Be Remembered? This video was a set of portraits, headshots, environmental portraits to give us an idea of how people want to be remembered after they're gone. And the portraits included friends and strangers off the street. And I would have some rapport with them, either for years or just for a few minutes, and then I would take their picture. Finally, there was the photo book Images from Earth, a series of landscapes that perhaps give you a slice of where we are in our times, both in terms of our relationship with nature and the relationships among us. The book is really about, it's a teaching tool for how to see, for actually seeing things for the first time. Also, it's a fun book because it doesn't provide a lot of context, so it gives you a chance to think about each print that's in the photo book. In big picture, in this video, I have organized it in such a way that we'll have, after this introduction, the show and tell of my bigger prints. These are gelatin silver and platinum prints. I'll present the gelatin silver prints first in series. Hopefully there'll be a few stories behind the series for each set of prints. And then we'll circle back and try to understand why this video is not so much about me as it is as much about you as well. So the first series I want to discuss is the Paris series taken about 9 years ago. Here I had a day or two, I had more than that, to really, and from a previous visit to Paris, to get a better idea of the vibe of the city. And so I went around and did a bunch of street photography, and I think the set of prints that came out of the trip from 2011, I think is fairly coherent to give you an idea of the spirit of the place. Here's one. Here's the second. This picture I literally took from the hip, and you don't see people's faces, but you get an idea of the joie de vivre here, I would say. This one's going to be difficult to see, but in one of the gardens, you can see there is a figure behind the tree, but I present a very good bit of form and symmetry that we can appreciate in nature. I don't want to read too much in this picture, I just like the composition. There's no shortage of dogs in Paris, and I think this man's shyness with a more direct picture of the dog gives you some idea that they are bonded. Aren't most owners and dogs bonded anywhere? But this is Paris after all. Another one, a typical cafe scene, but I think it's a very good, strong moment of how, we should enjoy life as much as we can. And that I think this is what I'm trying to tell from this series. Live life well. Another series takes us, several years later to 2 years ago when there was work done on improving the West Portal Tunnel, not far from my home in San Francisco. A lot of my work explores the relationship of people with what they do. I have a great deal of empathy for people, for the average or not so average person who has to make a living. So I spent a lot of my time in late afternoon and sometimes in the early morning hours while the construction was going on near the opening of the tunnel, not in the tunnel itself. I didn't have that access. So I took pictures of people, working on the rails and moving rail around and building medians and so forth for the street for the rail improvement. And so one thing I did was to do some headshots of the people. And you can see a few of them. I apologize for the quality of the prints. I never claim that I'm an expert printer, but at least I'm able to use it to print effectively enough to report what I'm doing. So you can see some headshots. This is probably the only woman contractor I spoke to. There weren't many on the job. Another, perhaps a much stronger picture in this series. And another. I would take into account the, not so much, well, there is a great deal of directness, and not a lot of direction for me, actually, when I took these pictures. But I wanted to give you an idea of people at work, and perhaps give you some insight of what's on their mind and the physical challenges they faced. This doesn't show that, but maybe you could read in some of their faces if they're not wearing sunglasses. I may have duplicated those, sorry about that. Not all of my work has been about people on the streets. Sometimes I go to neighbors, and if they happen to have their pets around, particularly their dogs, I would ask for a shot or two. Here's one I like. Woman with her Frenchie. Across the street neighbor. This one was also shot in West Portal. Again, a commercial strip, not about half a mile from where I live. That is not a dog. So I like to explore relationships with people with work and people with animals, just to see how they get along. How do we cope? And people cope either through work or their relationships with people and animals. Those are gelatin silver prints, and I want to add just a technical footnote here, that I shoot about 50% of the time with analog or film cameras and half the time with digital. All the prints that you've been seeing are based on film negatives. Again, I do not make digital negatives and then make prints. I prefer the aesthetics of grain that come naturally, so to speak, from the chemistry of film. The next set of prints are platinum prints. They too are based on film negatives. I have a bigger camera, an 8x10 view camera, where I can make contact prints and make platinum prints, which, as you know, are very durable and requires that you brush the platinum palladium emulsion on good watercolor paper, let it dry, expose under strong UV, and then develop the prints. So, let's start with, so this series really is a study of stuffed animals. This might be very terribly hard to see, but you'll see that on the sofa chair is a stuffed animal. Some of these are toys that our beagles used to have. The beagles haven't been around for years now. So it's a kind of remembrance, kind of a poignant moment, time and again, for each print. Hard to discern again, but we have 3 stuffed animals here. This is one of my wife's favorite stuffed animals. His name is Henry, And I hope you can see something from this. Since I'm doing this in one take and haven't really previewed, I really don't know how much you can appreciate the wide tonality that platinum affords. And again, my play of contrast in these, it's very low contrast, could be much better. So I wanted to show you those, and I don't want to risk duplicating things. The next set of platinum prints was a study I did 15 years ago now. I used to work on Montgomery and Sutter Streets, and I was in easy walking distance of Chinatown in San Francisco. And so I actually brought my 8x10 view camera to Deerdorf from Chicago to work, put it in a backpack, had my tripod, and had the film loaded already, and went around Chinatown, actually going into places of worship, Buddhist temples, restaurants, wherever I could, family associations, to see if people, and ask people if I could take their picture, just to document what's going on in Chinatown, at least back then. So here's this series. Again, maybe hard to see at this distance. There's a boy in a hammock here, and someone is looking on. This is at a Buddhist shrine upstairs from one of the alleyways in Chinatown. Some of these are framed. Hopefully the glare won't be too much of an issue. This is looking out from one of the Buddhist temples onto the Transamerica building. You might notice the oranges in the foreground. And finally, a very dark picture, very high contrast picture because of the light background. There's a Buddhist monk here, and these are spinning. But I asked him to stand there and to contemplate, basically. I think we both were while I was shooting. And finally, at one of the associations, I captured these two men. I can easily imagine they went to the association frequently, if not daily, to kvetch. Well, that's really all the series I wanted to do in this video. I thought it was important to record some of the bigger work, the bigger pictures I've been doing over the past few years. There are two other points I want to make. First of all, I want to thank all of my mentors and fellow photographers who've inspired me to continue shooting. Specifically, I could mention Benjamin Chen, Frank Espada, Reed Yalom, Jessica Liflin, Irene Poon, David Allen Harvey, among others, who've had an impact on me. But I think it's up to each photographer, especially amateur photographers, who don't necessarily have the financial pressures to make a living and have a little bit more creative freedom, because they can, to go out and, capture your vision, leave your mark, find a way to express your feelings and your feelings about the world and about people, so that we all have a greater understanding of why we're around. And I guess that answers ultimately the question, why should we care? Why should we care about my work or any photographer's work? I think, again, it's because as human beings, I think it's important for us to make sense for our existence, because there's no strong biological reason for us to be around. We are part of a much greater universe of many living things and many inanimate things. And I think we should take advantage of the fact that we have the intelligence to create. So we should. Thanks. Please look for these videos on the YouTube channel. I have many others. I can't promise I will have more videos. Maybe that's a good thing. But in the years ahead, I'm hoping I'll have enough material and thoughts to shoot some more and entertain you if I can. Thank you.